understand your point about the influence, and I'm not denying that. Certainly, Twitter is an influential platform. But like anything, whether it's the American law or the rules of Twitter or the rules of Facebook or rules of any platform, there are rules, and those rules have to be followed. So it is your choice whether to follow those rules and to continue to participate in a civic dialogue, or it is your choice to not do that.
Absolutely. You've monopolized public discourse to an extreme degree, and you say my way or the highway. I think it can't be disputed at this point that Twitter is extremely powerful in influencing elections. You know, I'm pretty sure you guys published recently a bunch of tweets from foreign actors that were trying to meddle in elections. Mm-hmm. So even you as a company recognize that foreign entities are trying to manipulate people using this platform. Mm-hmm. So there's a few things I want to ask beyond this, but wouldn't it be important then to just, at a certain point, Twitter becomes so powerful in influencing elections and giving access to even the president's tweets that you should allow people to use the platform based under the norms of U.S. law?
Twitter executives and the FBI collude to silence conservatives and sway the 2020 election. And we're going to talk about it. I'm your host, Hyde. This is Hide and Seek Media. Hello, all you beautiful and amazing people. Thank you for tuning in. Welcome to the show. If you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you get notified anytime I drop a new video. The show is brought to you by the Hide and Seek Media store. If you're like me and you like to spark a conversation or just make a statement without having to say too much at all, click the link down below, check out all the cool merch I have to offer, and if you use code 1776, I'll give you 20% off your entire order. So, the Twitter files are being slow-rolled by Elon Musk and a group of hand-picked reporters named Matt Taibbi, Bari Weiss, and now Michael Shellenberger. The bias that Twitter had against conservatives that they swore up and down they didn't have is exposed. And all of us out here who were screaming about it and calling them liars, now we have the receipts thanks to Elon Musk proving the conspiracy's right once again. I mean, this is starting to get ridiculous on how many of these conspiracies are starting to become proven true, right? And this is just another one of them. If we remember back when Tim Pool goes on the Joe Rogan Experience, and if you haven't seen it, go back, YouTube it, check it out, watch the entire, I think it's 3 hours, watch the entire thing. Because Tim does not let up, and he digs in deep. So, but those of us who do remember, that was the start of it, right? That was when the bias really got exposed for the first time, was being called out right there on the Joe Rogan Experience and being called liars right to their face.
Our rules are designed, again, and they don't always manifest this way in the outcomes, but in terms of what we're trying to drive is opportunity for every single person to be able to speak freely on the platform. And
that's absolutely not true. You don't allow hate speech, so free speech is not on your platform.
Like, Tim didn't hold back. He was like, you're lying, and I can prove it. Like, look at this and look at that. And you could see he was swaying Joe, and you could tell that there were some things, I mean, because Jack deferred to Vijaya a lot in that interview. She spoke way more than Jack did.
Some research. So we obviously received a lot of feedback. So we don't make these rules in a vacuum, just to be clear. We have a bunch of people all around the world who give us context on the types of behavior they're seeing, how that translates into real world harm. And they give us feedback. And they tell us, like, you should consider different types of rules, different types of perspective.
And there's a reason for that, because there was things going on at Twitter that even Jack didn't know about. Even though he was complicit in a lot of it, there were things that happened behind his back as well that she was part of. So there was a lot to these Twitter files, and it's still coming, right? So we don't know exactly what all we're going to see, and we don't know if Elon is holding on to the best for last, right? So far we've seen what's happened between October of 2020 to January 6th. We saw what went into banning Donald Trump off of Twitter, and now we've seen what's happened post January 6th on Twitter with all of the shadow banning and everything, and that's what's come out so far. And it's enough. It's enough right now to prove election interference. The question remains, what happens? Because we know we're going to see a hearing or two. There's going to be some kind of investigation into this by the House committees when the new session starts, because the Republicans are going to take back the House, and they're going to dig into this. I can promise you that. The only question remains is what happens after that. All right, we know we're going to see people get subpoenaed. We know we're going to hear I plead the fifth, or I didn't know, or whatever. But we have now proof, communications between people that say, yeah, we should do this, or hey, we know we're skating a thin line here, but we need to do it for the sake of the good of the people, right? And only one political ideology views it like that. So you can see how they were letting their political bias, affect their decision making, even though they swore up and down that Twitter wasn't doing that.
Platform restricts speech.
Our platform promotes speech unless people violate our rules.
And in a specific direction.
In any direction.
But I don't want to say his name. The guy who calls for death gets a suspension. The guy who insinuates death gets a permanent ban.
But Tim, you're misinterpreting what I'm saying, and I feel like you're doing it deliberately. It's not about one particular thing. It's about a pattern and practice of violating our rules.
And you have a pattern and practice of banning only one faction of people.
I don't agree with that.
Quillette recently published an article where they looked at 22 high-profile bannings from 2015 and found 21 of them were only on one side of the cultural debate.
But I don't look at the political spectrum of people when I'm looking at their tweets.
Right, you have a bias.
I don't know who they are.
You're biased, and you're targeting specific individuals because your rules support this perspective.
There's also the proof that they had people on blacklists like Dan Bongino and Charlie Kirk, James Woods. They were all on different types of lists to, like, do not amplify, or a search blacklist, or other kinds of crazy lists that that just suppressed the shareability or the attention that those tweets would get. All the while, Twitter's saying this isn't happening.
I'm going to start by making something very clear. We don't consider political viewpoints, perspectives, or party affiliation in any of our policies or enforcement decisions.
Now, we also have a crazy twist to the whole story with this whole James Baker thing. Okay, so James Baker was the general counsel for the FBI during the Trump investigation, the Russia collusion crap. He signed off on some of the FISA, information from the Steele dossier, and then after leaving the FBI in 2018, and goes to work for Twitter from 2020 to 2022, I believe. And he was the direct contact between Twitter and the FBI. This guy, James Baker, has a lot of weird connections. But if you want to see the video I do about James Baker, head on over to Locals and become a member of my Locals community. With your premium membership, not only will you get access to the James Baker video, but other content that I put up exclusively for Locals only. So head on over there and become a member. But back to the Twitter files, right? All of the information that's come out now, we know we have enough to prove that there was election interference. And so what I want to do is I want to jump into this first story from the Daily Wire, right? And it says, Twitter Files Part 3, Twitter worked in coordination with the U.S. government to censor content during the 2020 election. They go on to say, the third installment of the so-called Twitter Files released Friday night showed that federal agencies were in contact with Twitter during the 2020 presidential election and were involved in censoring content on the platform. The thread, which journalist Matt Taibbi took nearly 3 hours to post in full, contained contained a great deal of valuable information, but also some significant errors, ranging from appearing to not accurately describe some of the content to calling Rep. Jody Bice a congresswoman to calling Mike Huckabee the former governor of Arizona. Okay, so first of all, you get a couple of, names and stuff wrong like that, no one really cares, right? The semantics of, that, to me, that's a little bit of nitpicky there, Daily Wire. But they go on to say, despite these errors and others, much of the information that was released was stunning as it confirmed long-held suspicions about things that were going on at the company, including the revelation that executives sometimes went against their own policies when determining to censor former President Donald Trump, as well as the fact that all the censorship appeared to come solely from the political left and government entities and was aimed at the political right. The third installment of the Twitter files centered around the leap to Twitter's decision to permanently ban former president on January 8th, 2021, following the riot at the U.S. Capitol building. The information release showed that Twitter had special Slack channels set up where they monitored Trump's tweets and made rapid decisions about whether to censor the president or add warning labels to his tweets. Then Twitter policy director Nick Pickles appeared to admit that the platform was meeting officials from the FBI and DHS regarding some of the actions that it was taking. Yoel Roth, then Twitter global head of trust and safety, confirmed in an internal message that he was meeting with the FBI, DHS, and Director of National Intelligence about election security and about the Hunter Biden laptop story. The DHS, FBI, and DOJ said during the election the laptop story was not disinformation, which the former Director of National Intelligence confirmed to the Daily Wire on Friday night. So there it is, folks. I'll show you some of these tweets and messages, right? You can go to Twitter and check it out. Go to, Matt type, just go into search and type hashtag Twitter files. And trust me, once you go through it and start reading some of these messages that were back and forth between these executives and these employees, you can see their bias. For those of us who have no trust in the government and have no trust in corporations like that, we knew they were lying. We knew they were lying when they were on the Joe Rogan Experience.
You don't need to be the most important. It's just that you are extremely important. And that's a compliment. Twitter has become extremely powerful. But at a certain point, you should not have the right to control what people are allowed to say. No private look, I'm a social liberal. I think we should regulate you guys because you are unelected officials running your system the way you see fit against the wishes of a democratic republic, and there are people who disagree with you who are being excised from public discourse because of your ideology. That terrifies me.
Tim called them out right to their face. You're liars. They were lying then. They lied all through 2020. But this is how they fortified the election, right? This is how they fortified the election. The safest and most securest election in this country's history, according to some people. But even with all of that that's coming out on Twitter, right, and all of the stuff that's being dropped in the Twitter files, there are those out there who still believe that Twitter was doing nothing more than just following their terms of service, because in the terms it says that they reserve the right to, ban or filter any of the content they deem inappropriate or that violates their terms. And so I thought that's kind of absurd when you actually, if you look at the evidence that's being laid out and still believe that there was no bias, you, my friend, live in a bubble. I found this story from timcast.com. Critics of Twitter Files Part 2 downplay report suggests platform followed terms of service. They weren't shadow banning political opponents. They were just enforcing the spam policy. Okay, so in part 2, that's where we get the blacklists, right? And that's where we find out Dan Bongino was on a search blacklist and Charlie Kirk was on a do not amplify list, right? Which means, don't promote his tweets and de-rank them, basically. And so we have the proof now, and yet these people still don't believe it. So Timcast goes on to report, critics of Bari Weiss's Thursday installment of the Twitter Files downplayed and dismissed the report as reflecting previous policies in the platform's terms of service. Weiss's Thursday report confirmed previous suspicions that the outlet was shadow banning users, which is defined as the intentional blocking or prevention of a user from being discoverable on social media by limiting their account visibility without the user's knowledge. However, Twitter executives referred to this practice as visibility filtering, according to Weiss's report. Critics of Weiss's report downplayed her revelation by suggesting the outlet has been transparent about shadow banning visibility filtering in the platform's terms of service. I just discovered the secret document, the publicly available terms of service, that says Twitter sometimes limits the distribution of or visibility of content, said Vox co-founder Matthew Yglesias. New narrative. They weren't shadow banning political opponents, they were just enforcing the spam policy, said entrepreneur David Sachs, who quote tweeted one user downplaying Weiss's report as simply following the platform's terms of service. As Bari Weiss clearly describes, the rules were enforced against the right, but not against the left, Twitter owner Elon Musk followed up. Exactly. So even if they were just enforcing the rules, they were only enforcing them on one side of the political spectrum, which is bias. Accounts affected by visibility filters were tagged with trends blacklist, search blacklist, and do not amplify, according to Weiss. So those were the accounts I was already talking about, the prominent right-wing accounts, right? Charlie Kirk, Dan Bongino. And even what's crazy is even with those blacklist tags, they still were gaining hundreds of thousands, if not millions of followers, right? So that just goes to show you that even with all the downgrading and downplaying and cheating that Twitter did, it still couldn't stop the movement. And that's really what I want to get to in this video, right? Is yes, the Twitter Files is great. And getting all that information out there in the public for people to read and share with those who wouldn't necessarily believe it otherwise, right? If they just come from, crazy conspiracy people like me, right? Now we have receipts to go with the conspiracy. Just another one notched in the book. So my whole concern is now that we have these receipts, what are our elected officials going to do with them? All right, Jim Jordan, what are you going to do with this? This is something big, okay? They interfered with the 2020 election. 1 in 5 Joe Biden voters said they would not have voted for Joe Biden had they known the Hunter Biden story was real. 1 in 5. That's enough to sway the election to Donald Trump. So I don't know what needs to take place, like what steps need to take place next. I understand there's going to be hearings and subpoenas and all that, but I want to see prosecutions. I want to see people go to jail for this. Even if we don't do anything about the election, because it's already over, it's been certified, nothing we can do about that now. Okay, understand. That's fine. But people need to go to jail over this. It needs to be public. It needs to be loud. It needs to be the message heard round the world. We are no longer putting up with this crap. We are no longer going to stand idly by and go, oh, they won't do it again, or we don't see anything. No, not happening no more. If people do not go to jail over this, you're going to lose the movement, because we're going to have no faith in any government officials. We're going to have no faith in any government institutions anymore if you do not do the right thing and put people behind bars for this. Real jail time, felony convictions. This was a federal crime. If we don't see that, 2024 could get very, very nasty. But I want to know what you guys think. Am I wrong? What do you want to see? Right? Because that's what I want to see. I want to see hard convictions. I want to know what you guys want to see. And what do you think? I mean, is the Twitter files a big nothing burger like the left is saying? Or is this the proof we need to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that election interference does happen, and that we have proof that the Democrats are the ones responsible for it in the last election? I don't know. You let me know down in the comments. I'm going to leave it there. If you haven't, if you've made it all the way to the end of the video, I really do appreciate you guys watching. It means so much that you've made it this far. If you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you get notified anytime I drop a new video. Smash that like button. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think about this video, the topic, and the channel. I love to engage with my viewers, so feel free to fire away. But if you want to help support the channel and you really like the work I'm doing here, the best thing you can do is hit that share button and share this video on all social media platforms. Those interactions will show YouTube's algorithm that my video needs more impressions, and that's how we're going to grow. I appreciate everything you guys are doing, and I will catch you later. Peace.